What about you, Grandma? What was the world outside of Wellsville like? What did you know? What were you aware of outside of Wellsville growing up?
Okay, not a whole lot. Until I graduated from high school. I guess the only place that my folks and I went to visit were friends in Michigan, in Detroit, Michigan. And that's the only place other than Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania that I had ever traveled to until after I graduated from high school. It's pretty much Wellsville in the Ohio River.
And what about your grandparents? Did they live in Wellsville?
Yes. I could go visit both my maternal and paternal grandparents, walking distance to both of them. And I remember going to Grandma Alton's, and she was a wonderful cook. That was my mother's mother. And she had 8 children, and so I always had cousins that I would go visit. And one time I can remember they had to set a board up between chairs so that all the little ones could sit at the table with the grandparents, and she was a marvelous cook. And then my grandma and Grandpa Hamilton lived right behind us, so my brother and I used to go over there a lot. But that's the way it was in those days. You visited your neighbors, and you visited your grandparents if they lived in the area, and fortunately mine did. And I can remember a girlfriend who came from Pennsylvania to visit her grandparents who lived 2 doors from me, and we had a pump in our backyard, and she and I would go out by the pump and sing songs, and the people who lived next door to us would look out their kitchen window. They would open their window and they would stand and clap, and we would just keep on singing and making up verse after verse, and that's the way my childhood was. And then after I graduated, did you want to know what my first job was?
Yeah.
Okay, when I graduated from high school, I started to work the next day in the pottery office as a file clerk, and I made $65 a month there, and I thought that was great. But then there was an opening for a PBX operator in my dad's office, and so after 3 months at the pottery, then I went to work in the brickyard office. And I liked that, and I got a raise. I was making $75 a month there, and out of that money I would buy a war bond. I couldn't buy one for $18.75 in 1 month, so I put $6.25 in each month until for 3 months. Then I would buy a war bond. So I had all those. And I went to business college for a year and to learn skills, because I took a college prep course in high school and I needed typing and shorthand and business courses. So I did that for a while, and I could see after 3 years that I needed more than my business skills. So it was time to move out of Wellsville. My mother encouraged me, you just go get yourself a college education and make something of yourself. Oh, okay, I'll do that. I have enough money. And when I got to college, I worked 2 jobs there, one for the Dean of Women and one for Mr. Tischendorf, who was in industrial arts. I did those 2 jobs. And my folks were just coming out of the Depression, and I didn't want to take any money from home, so I did that for a year. And I should tell you that when I was a hostess at the Freshman Hop, the veterans were coming in, and we had, the hostesses had jobs of getting the guys out on the dance floor. So I had my hostess sign on, and I went over and I saw 8 veterans standing like this, looking over the crop. And I knew the first guy because he was from home, and I knew him. And I said, Skeets introduced me to the rest of the people here. So he introduced me, and the last guy in that line was named Stumpe. And I just laughed, and I said, well, that's an unusual name. And he said, would you like to dance? He was the only one who asked me. The rest of the guys were still looking. And so we got out on the dance floor, and we had a few dates. We liked each other. And I lived in a suite of rooms in the dorm with 5 other girls. And every night when I would come in after seeing Grandpa, they would say, did he kiss you goodnight? I say, no. And that went on for quite a while. He was pretty slow. And then he kissed me goodnight. And I came home, and the girls were waiting. He kissed you. And I said, yes. That's the way we did it then, you know. And so after dating for about a year, he got, he had word that he could go back into the service and with a regular commission. And he said, why don't we talk about that? And so we did a little bit of talking about it, and it sounded like a good move for him because he was majoring in accounting and everybody else was majoring in accounting, and he knew with a commission in the service, he would probably do better. So we left on good terms, and I thought highly of him. And I continued my education by working for the post engineer down at Fort Sam Houston and stayed with my brother and sister-in-law. And I was able to save more money to go back to school. But then he called and said he was at March Air Force Base and I was in San Antonio. And he said, I have been trying to get over there, but I haven't had any luck. He said, I wanted to ask you. And I said, ask me what? And he said, if you would marry me. Well, I dropped to the floor. I was so nonplussed. I said, well, that sounds good, but would you put it in writing, please? And so he did. And then 2 weeks later, he came with my engagement ring. It was on Memorial Day. And then 2 weeks after that, we were married. How far do you want me to go?
I'm going to stop you